Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I did a video a while back about how some national parks were no longer accepting cash for entry fees. If you wanted to enter the park, you had to go in somehow cashless, using some kind of plastic or something. And I mentioned that somebody had filed a lawsuit over that. And of course, this is a controversial topic because you'd think, hey, if my money's good anywhere, it should be good when I'm dealing with the feds. After all, they're the ones who printed it, right? Well, here's a story from The Center Square by Brett Rowland. Judge says would-be visitors cannot sue over the Park Service's cashless entrance requirements. And Mike sent us, thanks a lot. So the judge has said that the lawsuit is going away. Now, the judge dismissed the complaint against the NPS, and that alleged that the government failed to honor its own currency at the entrance to multiple parks. And no one's arguing about that. It's true. They said we will not accept cash anymore. The question is, do they have the right to do that? So the federal judge dismissed the complaint, but he did leave an opening for plaintiffs to refile if they can amend their complaint and come up with a different theory of some sort. The judge ruled that would-be visitors who were told they needed to pay with something other than cash lacked standing to sue. The court finds that they have failed to plausibly allege that they have suffered an injury, in fact, that is both concrete and particularized and either actual or imminent in support of the relief they seek. The entire order of the court was 5 pages long, so that's relatively short. The order comes after 3 different people filed the lawsuit back in March of 24 against the National Park Service for refusing to accept cash for park entrance fees. They allege that the NPS cashless program violates federal law. The complaint sought to have a judge declare that the policy was against the law. The suit alleged that 3 visitors were denied entrance to parks in Arizona, New York, and Georgia. The complaint further alleged that the National Park Service no longer accepts American money at approximately 29 national parks, national historic sites, national monuments, and national historic parks around the country. Attorneys for the federal government argued the suit should be tossed because the plaintiffs had not been harmed by the policy and do not have standing to sue. And so here's the quote: plaintiffs fail to allege that they personally lack access to non-cash payment methods and thus have not plausibly alleged that they've been harmed by the challenge policy as is necessary to establish their standing to sue. That's actually what the defense wrote here for the Department of Justice on behalf of the National Park Service. Second, plaintiffs have failed to state a claim on which relief can be granted because the statute on which they rely to characterize the alleged cashless program as unlawful does not require the Park Service to accept cash for its services that it provides. And so the judge went along with this. And so the judge noted in his order that a past injury cannot sustain a claim for forward-looking relief of the kind sought here. And so the judge is saying if these plaintiffs could show that they couldn't get into the park because they were incapable of getting in under the current rules, then they might have a case. But simply saying, well, we wanted them to have this other way of getting in, is not enough. An attorney who represented the park visitors said he was reviewing the judge's order and would consider filing an amended complaint to address the issues. The judge gave the plaintiffs until March 7th to file an amended complaint. NPS said it stopped accepting cash at some parks to be a better steward of the money. And this is the crazy part. In a 2023 news release, National Park Service, for example, explained Death Valley National Park and said it's going cashless because it collected $22,000 the previous year. Processing the cash cost the park $40,000. So they were pointing out that they were losing money by accepting cash because processing the cash costs so much money. Cash handling costs include an armored car contract to transport the cash and park rangers' time counting money and processing paperwork. The transition to cashless payments will allow the NPS to redirect the $40,000 previously spent processing cash to directly benefit park visitors. So the Park Service says reducing cash collections allows the National Park Service to be better stewards of the fees collected from visitors. Cashless options reduce transaction times at busy entrance stations and decrease the risk of theft. Moving to a cashless system improves accountability and consistency, reduces chances of errors, and maximizes the funding available for critical projects and visitor services. The NPS website also notes that each park that has completed the transition to cashless has an alternative option for visitors who are not able to pay with a credit or debit card. The specific arrangements vary by park, and park staff on site will be able to assist. Most parks that have converted to cashless have had an overwhelming positive experience. So, according to the NPS, of the more than 400 national parks in the system, 108 charge an entrance fee, and of course, those are the ones that we're talking about here with the cashless systems. So, but basically, the court is saying, look, you can get in by paying a certain amount of money, and they've gone cashless, and it doesn't appear that you couldn't get in because you couldn't find a way around that. There you go. And so I'm not exactly sure what they can do to amend their complaint, because every version of this story, and I saw several, pointed out that the court had left an opening and said, if there's some allegation you can make as to how this harmed you or how the harm will occur in the future, perhaps you can amend your complaint. And so, generally speaking, when a lawsuit gets filed and a court dismisses it, okay, you can often amend the complaint if there's a way to do so to get around whatever the deficiencies were in the first complaint. Sometimes amendment would be futile, as we say, and therefore you couldn't amend, but quite often you can. So there's two things that could happen here. One, they could amend the complaint and try again, or they could appeal this and see what a court of appeals has to say about this. But the interesting thing about this is I actually have a parallel that happens to me in my life. I've written a few books. Occasionally I do live book signings where I'll speak someplace and then sign books. And people come up and they buy the books from me. And so I've got a Square card reader that goes in my phone, and I tell people I accept cash, cards, whatever you got. I'll even take checks. There's always somebody who says, oh, you'll take a check. And they pull out a checkbook, and they write me this check in big flowery letters. And by the way, I've never had someone write me a bad check at a book signing. And I've walked out of a book signing before with a big wad of cash and checks. And I've had other authors tell me, they go, Steve, I won't use Square. I won't use another system. I go, why is that? They go, I don't want to lose the processing fee. You lose a couple percentage points on every single swipe, right? I go, yeah. But the interesting thing is that when I walk out of there with a big wad of cash in my pocket, I got to go to a bank and do something with it. However, when I get a whole bunch of people who come by and swipe their cards, the money goes straight to my bank account. I like that. And so the processing fee I pay, I think, is worth it. Now, I've had people go, but Steve, I still don't think it's worth it. Great. But the point is that you can at least see the argument, right? That all the people using cards, it's making the job easier for the park rangers. They don't have to have a cash box with cash in it where they make change. And I read the comments on a couple different websites that talked about this particular case. And they were talking about how many people are so happy that there's not a big line now trying to get into a park as people are fumbling for cash, looking for change, making change, handling cash back and forth, and all this stuff. It's just, swipe the card and you're in. So I know there are people out there who are going to think that this is somehow wrong on principle. But when I saw the fact that it costs them $40,000 to process the $22,000 they took in, you go, okay, that's stupid. And that would be stupid. That'd be wasteful. But it makes sense that you've got a bunch of different people in an organization handling big amounts of cash every single day and having the cash go. Yeah, it costs money. So I got no problem with this. But then again, the last few times I've gone to parks, I've paid with a card to get in. So it never bothered me, but I can understand that some people are unhappy with this. But a court has now said, well, it's unfortunate because it's not against the law, and that's the key. So, Mike, thanks for sending that. The Center Square is where I found this story, but it's all over the place. Brett Rowland wrote that. Judge says would-be visitors can't sue over NPS cashless entrance requirements. Like I said, they can refile the complaint, amended, or they can appeal. If that happens, I'll follow it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I am sorely afflicted with the plague. and the only cure for it is more cowbell.